to spend the next only 45 minutes talking about finding collaboration among the housed and the unhoused. And this is a question that concerns me greatly, and I know it concerns these three wonderful people. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris to introduce our guest panelists.
All right. Emily Farthing, I know a lot of you know her. She's a senior now at the University of Oregon, focusing on religious studies and public policy planning and management. She's on the board of the Interfaith Prayer Service International, the North American Interfaith Network Young Adult Committee, and a founder of Thrive. She will talk more about Thrive to our group. She's been a site lead at Egan Warming Center and on the board of community-supported shelters. And Emily currently coordinates the events for the city of Eugene, including Sunday Streets, which will be coming on to 24th Street on September 25th. Now I'm just going to add my own comments about Emily. I've been involved with her because of the breakfast group that we do on the fourth Sunday of the month. And she's like a whirling dervish, really. She has that type of energy. She just keeps everything flowing and moving. She's really quite remarkable in her leadership skills, the hands-on leadership skills. And I've also seen her as a facilitator for Not in My Backyard events, and she is a very gracious facilitator of those kinds of events too. I know she does many, many other things, and she's just being humble. Nathan showers next to her, grew up in Wilhelmina, Oregon. He's an Eagle Scout and an accomplished chef, and managed a vineyard for 4 years. He was a leader of Whoville and protested for a place for people without houses to exist. He now runs the Nightingale Health Sanctuary. Tracy grew up in California in the suburbs of Chicago. She moved to Oregon in 1983. She has a degree in parks, recreation and parks management, and also studied as Emily is now doing public policy planning and management at the U of O, where she favored classes in sustainability and poverty. She raised her son in Eugene, and he lives in Portland and is doing very well, and I know Tracy likes to go up there sometimes and visit him. And the thing I wanted to say, a couple of things about Nathan and Tracy. I have worked with them on the Nightingale Health Sanctuary for about a year now. And I really appreciate the energy and commitment they've given to the camp. It's really quite phenomenal how involved they are in people's lives and how they help them try to move along in their lives and how they monitor issues that a lot of people get paid money to do, and they don't. And they do it with their whole hearts and souls. And I know they'll tell their story more in more detail, but I certainly appreciate all you do. Thank you.
So I just want to start off with the question Emily proposed, which is, what is your goal, and how do you set goals? So, Emily?
Yeah. So specifically, I guess, in relation to what this panel is about and building those connections with the unhoused and housed, and overarching, I guess in anything that I do, I really like having a goal in mind and setting intentions. And that could be as simple as the way in which I speak with someone, and that is generally in a prayer, help me to be present in this conversation, but larger goals are helpful as well. But in building connections between the housed and unhoused, I think that the goals that I've had consistently are to, and come from my faith, as treat everyone as equal and every conversation as equal. And I think that's really important in these conversations that we have as we're trying to integrate different voices who may not necessarily be at the table now or who have not come to the table yet, in the ways in which we communicate. if we're really trying to, like I was talking with Michelle earlier about EVE, for example, and this idea that we could build neighborhoods of small houses in which they're not just for unhoused folks, but perhaps people who want to live in a tiny home, people who are just graduating from college, or people who are in college who may not necessarily can afford the apartments that are in Eugene because they're so expensive. Building communities that are just for people. And I guess in keeping in mind in every conversation that we have that we are all just people. And I think that really resonated in the message today. So as far as setting goals, I like to follow what my dad always tells me, which is set a 6-month, a 1-year, a 5-year, and a 10-year. And at those checkpoints, check in and see how you're doing. And you can set physical and mental goals and financial goals and where you want to see yourself. And I truly believe that in doing that, you can accomplish those, or at least get a better sense of where you're at and where you're going.
We repeat the question, just so we get it.
What is your goal?
Yes.
And how do you set goals?
Okay. My goal is more or less, I was homeless for many years, and I seen a problem of a lot of homeless people that wanted help off the streets and into better environments, not getting help and not being heard and not getting seen. And so when I came to Eugene, it was almost like prayers getting answered. And I ended up in a homeless camp called Whoville, and stuff went awry, and I ended up being leader of that camp. And made a lot of decisions for a lot of people. And the goal here is to get people that want help on the streets the help that they need. And there's not really any services in our communities yet to go do outreach and street outreach and help hands-on with homeless. And I just fit in, and I know the wording sometimes to get people to open up their minds and get the help. Like, not just go down to the street and panhandle and get a beer or wander around wondering when they're going to eat next. Like, actually have a place to stay and feel safe so they can look at the 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. We have people in our camp right now that are going to be getting housed up. And that's the goal, is to get people housed back up so they're not on the streets. I've seen people get on the streets and be normal people like myself, lost a house, lost my second wife from drugs and bad decisions that I made. And they want help. You know, we all want help. Even housed people want help.
I'd like to ask you a question. How do you determine people want help? I mean,
It's a good conversation.
Simple enough, people can tell you, and then you know they're lying to you. But how do you really determine that?
It takes a lot. My mom taught me when I was younger to watch people and study people. And you can watch them, and you watch their eyes, their heartbeat, the way they move around. When they're trying to con you or convince you of something compared to the truth. When they actually meet your eyes and they actually tell you things and they start cheering up.
Okay.
When you see that so many times in my life, and just the last 2-3 years here in Eugene, now last 6 years on the streets from Astoria, Portland, Salem, there's a lot of people out there that really do want to help. But they got problems inside where a beer, meth, coke is the only kind of Band-Aid that they have. You know, so these camps, I feel, they help pull off that Band-Aid and let it start healing. They come and talk to me and Tracy mornings. Sometimes the first thing we do is hear 2-3 stories from people about their sadness. You know, like we had a resident today talking about an operation. This camp has got him the place to go to appointments and go get to meet these doctors and see that he's not just living down by the river. And they don't like giving people operations that are living down by the river. So now through all this, through being in camp for 5 months, in a month and a half, he'll be getting a full knee reconstructed surgery. And he'll be getting housed up through that. But it's to hear a story, you can't just go, oh yeah, have a nice day, see you tomorrow, you know. You gotta give them encouragement. stick with it and keep going with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Want to give the mic to Tracy?
I have more to say. Hang on. You're okay, baby. Tracy helps me a lot, too, so much.
The goal question?
Yeah, what are your goals?
Well, since you brought up my son, he sets goals. You know, financial, mental, physical, 6 months, 1 year. And then you're kind of affirming your life. I would say my goal is to get up every day and have the best attitude I can have and hold on for the ride. Make it to meetings, don't be late, like baby stepping goals. Other than that, you know, we could enter into the poverty discussion where I should probably set goals. I should probably have goals. Which came first, the poverty or no goals? Because I'm thankful for what I have every day. I don't make big plans. I keep my dreams low key. I don't have a goal of the American dream is not my goal. I've never had a goal to own a home. Never had a goal to have this great job that buys my home. Probably why I'm at kind of where I'm at now. My goal is to keep my problems or my upsets contained and to be a good person and present, and I almost like I'm here for Nathan to help him as a woman, as a friend, as a fellow homeless advocate. So I keep my goals low key. I just like to be positive and love and work on myself to be a good person and not get frustrated with the wait sometimes, and to be a good listener. So most people need a listener. Sometimes it's not always so easy when you're just trying to go to the bathroom, you know. So my goal would be to not be rude to that person who needs me to listen. It's like, dude, I just need to go to the bathroom. No, my goal is to be kind and say, hey, give me a second. I'll be right back, you know. So, yeah.
Ladies first.
So Nightingale Health Sanctuary is a city-sanctioned rest stop. We can have 15 to 20 people per rest stop, and we have to provide garbage cans and bathrooms and have insurance. We're located on MLK Jr. Boulevard behind Lane County Behavioral Health. Then there's community supported shelters, and they have Roosevelt Safe Spot and Chambers Safe Spot, which has 2 rest stops in it of 20 people each. And then there's OVE right down the road that has 30 people and tiny houses. It's a little more set up, or it's more permanent. Nightingale Health Sanctuary moves around. CSS has permanent spots, mostly because we're involved with the county. So that changes the aspect because Dr. Ludke is our county health administrator, and he's pretty strict about how much time you can stay in one spot, which is 120 days. So that's why we move around, because we're county and city, whereas community supported shelters is only city. We live at the camp, Nathan and I, which is Nightingale Health Sanctuary, and community supported shelters, they don't live at the camps. So that's a little bit of a difference. Eric manages the people, but he gets to say, like, come to the office and maybe turn a blind eye to some things and pay attention to some things. So there's certain advantages and different disadvantages to not being on site. And Yeah.
Could you say something about your personal struggle with leadership as a leader of the camp at Nightingale? What's that been like for you?
Personal struggle with leadership. Well, I didn't know if this would come up, but this morning I went to just go use some water and it's all scummy.
Ooh.
So my personal leadership is, again, to stay calm and be like, because how come I'm the only person that can see that stuff growing on the water, you know? Why am I the only person to care? So my personal form of leadership at the time is, whoa, Tracy's freaking out. Show by example. And then Jennifer comes along and I say, you know, I really love you and care about you and think you're an awesome person, but this, for me, I just need to clean up a little bit, so it's best to kind of stand back and let me just scrub with a little bleach. So my personal leadership, and I've studied leadership as a recreation, is to be in the thick of it and be in the middle of the leadership. Like personally, I gave up leadership with older age. I always thought, well, I've had my chance to be my leader, and I kind of let other people be the leaders. So when I studied leadership, I don't lead from the office. I chose to be a leader that's helping build the house.
Yeah. How about you, Nathan? Chris?
Go ahead, and Nathan continue, and then I have a question after that.
I want to about leadership in at Nightingale. There's a lot to do as a leader in Nightingale. From the time we wake up till the time we go to bed, there's decisions. Right now we have 28 people in camp. We're allowed to have 30. There's a lot of people that are mentally disabled and physically disabled. So imagine having 10 people that are mentally disabled and 10 people that are physically disabled that make a mess or say the wrong words. You have to be there and you have to make sure that you catch what's going on early in the game, or it can be pretty bad. There's never been a fight in this camp yet. But the arguments sometimes and the words used are not appropriate in my upbringing. There's a lot of things that as a leader you have to step in and bring up both people's personal lives and their personal problems to deal with the situation. You know, because they are mentally handicapped. It's not their fault that they're mentally handicapped, you know. They didn't choose when they were born to be mentally handicapped. They did not choose to be physically disabled when they were born, you know. It's not their fault. And it frustrates them inside. It frustrates me sometimes inside. But to use the right words and get them to be back on the same page. For some reason, some days it's so easy. And other days it can be very trying. And it is very good to have Tracy, because she really does help me. When I want to raise my voice, she helps me keep it calm. We have camp meetings and issues come up about who does this and who does that in camp, and the messes that get made, and people having too much stuff in their tents, and just me as the leader of the camp, we have to decide the style that the whole camp's going to get along with certain issues. Like we have a guy that wants a generator. Okay, it's really nice. It isn't that noisy. As soon as you say generator, I thought, oh God, it's going to be noisy. Okay, no, it's very quiet. But then you got to also think about other people that are fragile to smells. So we got the exhaust issue. So it's good to print it up in a meeting and everybody discusses their issues on the generator. You can't just be like, yeah, sure, let's have a generator. You can't do that. You're disrupting people in ways that leaders are supposed to make it all be copacetic and peaceful and loving. Not people that are different, wanting to hide from each other in a camp is not the way a leader would run a camp. When you notice that there's one person staying in their tent too long and hiding out, you got to go and ask them why and find out why. so you can talk to the person that's inflicting something against them and making them feel like they should go hide. Nobody should have to go hide. Hiding just makes it worse. When you get out of your house, when you get out of your tent, and you say hi to somebody, it helps you out so much. Instead of just hiding in your tent when you have a problem. So as a leader, it's good to go and just, you notice certain people go through phases where they talk a lot and they want to get to know everybody. And then they tell the wrong person something, so they get embarrassed, you know. As a leader, you're supposed to go and make sure that person's embarrassment, you make almost, it's sad sometimes what I do. I've done it too many times, but to make a joke out of it and make humor out of it sometimes calms them down. 99% of the time it works, but it's probably not the right way.
All the time. Not all the time.
Not always. But
You know, you have a list of questions too, David, so I don't want to interrupt.
I want questions from the audience.
So, okay, I thought it would be interesting for people to know how you take care of a person who arrives at the camp, if you have a space,
Oh,
and if
Betty.
you don't have a space. And then what your rules are, and because that kind of dictates what you do in your work.
yes. So originally how a person comes into our camp. Right now we're working with different services. They have applications about 9 pages. First 2 pages are about rules and stuff and just how you need to be in the camp. Basic things you do if you lived in any community, apartment complex or neighborhood. You know, respect your neighbors, don't be disruptive. And this camp is no alcohol, no drugs. So what they do in their own tents is their own business, but what they print out into the community, disruptive behaviors, is not allowed. So a lot of people, it's weird, you know, when we first started out this project, you know, it's hard to spot everybody drinking. So we've got it so dialed in now that there's probably 1 or 2 people that hide out drinking in their tent. So these rules, and then there's, they want to ask you, we ask them about their background in life, their abilities, their disabilities. We make sure that they have, we have a list of their pills that they take. They fill out a page for background searches and checks. So we can see what kind of past they have, because the city and the county have made rules that we can't have sex offenders in our camp. And so it also helps me out because I'm a recovering addict. And to make sure there isn't people like within the last year with too many possession charges of methamphetamines, because their sobriety isn't clean enough and good, in my opinion. There's a lot of people that end up relapsing because we gave them a place to stay where we charge them like $5 a month to stay. They get a disability check and they're right back out doing drugs and using the camp, you know, to save money and do drugs. So we have to really break down on things. That's why I don't like people hanging out in their tents. So the background check helps us out a lot. Their medical, it tells us a lot about them, what pills they're on, what they admit that they have, people that are documented with disabilities. Because some people out on the streets, we're not just mentally disabled, but once you get on the streets, nighttime life on the streets isn't so good for some people. And some of these younger people aren't aware of it, and they get hurt real quick. And it ruins innocent people for their whole lives.
Can I ask a question?
Where I was going. Okay, so through this application that they fill out, we learn a lot about them and we question them. We've went through this for so many months now, over a year, that we've dialed it down to, we do vetting on Friday between 1 and 3. And we give out applications all week long. We've had to dial it in at camp so visitors aren't allowed to go into our kitchen because they take too much. Even though the food is donated for homeless people, they take all the good stuff. And it's sad. I wish I could provide them with food when they come and fill out an application, because they're so hungry, but we've been abused so many times by people leaving the water on. I mean, we've all learned in the community not to leave the water on. And there will be that one person that comes in and fill out an application, leaves the water on, it ruins it for 28, 30 other people. So me and Tracy, we ask them a lot of questions about where they've been, their families, their personal lives, to get to know them, to see if they'll fit in at camp.
So Nathan, John has a question.
Yes.
Hi, Nathan. I have so many questions, so I'll start with one. What are your goals for you and the residents of the camp, and what are the key missing things for you that you need to achieve those goals?
In camp, my goal is to...
you and the rest
my
of
big goal is to make a camp of 80 people to 100. Yes, a larger number. And another one would be to have a tent, a hut, or something there for the services to have their own desk, their own little office. You know, because we're working with Willamette Family Recovery right now. And it would be nice that they could come and actually see their individuals living, the way they interact, and help them work out things, because I just think having it on site would be a lot better than sending them on a bus and sending them down to the bus station where the drug dealers are. You know, I'd rather have the recovery people come to camp, because it's really hard when they come out of recovery to just stay clean, you know, mostly on the streets, because they start getting nervous, they want to do drugs, stay up at night, so the cops ain't harassing them, other people aren't harassing them that have stuff against them. So my big goal is to have a large camp. The bigger the better. Some days I don't even think of a number, you know. It's just a large camp. And I see a hand over there.
Yeah, one here.
But, okay, what was the second part of the question?
Well, I'd like water and electricity
Yes.
and more of a
Give her
permanent
the mic.
spot.
One of our biggest hassles is financial.
We've been we have water and we don't have electricity, and we don't need it to survive. We're doing rather well, but in order to up it a notch, I think a permanent, like even a building with a place to go inside and some water and some outlets is my goal.
I have a question then to follow up. If $5 a person times 20, that's not going to make your expenses. All right.
No.
So $100. What are your expenses, and what other ways do you bring in money besides $5 a person? What are your needs? What can people do to help you?
Ooh,
People with disability have been paying too.
yeah. We have a lot of people in camp that help us out a lot. Like me and Tracy just started doing gardening again and stuff. Well, she's always done it. But, and so we have a vehicle, and that vehicle needs gas and insurance. So there's certain residents in our camp that we've given a place to stay off the streets that actually give us more than just the $5. A few of them. So that makes it a little bit easier, but it doesn't make it easier in a lot of other ways, you know. I mean, it's kind of sad that the city and the county have put this on the citizens, the community. Okay, I just thought of this one 2 weeks ago. Marijuana became legal for recreational use, and they've already raised how many millions of dollars in the last how many months? Where's that money going to go? Why can't they say 20% of it goes to not sheltering the homeless, but more rest stops? Because my idea of a rest stop is that place to get the homeless person from the streets into learning community again and learning to pick up after themselves. We check everybody's tents every Monday night before camp meeting to make sure there's no food, there's no dirty clothes, there's no big messes, they're not hoarding, you know, because a lot of us live undressed out of the dumpsters, you know. And you end up, after you hit so many dumpsters, you get so many piles of awesome clothes that you have to make sure they circulate it.
But, okay, I guess I want a bigger picture.
Yes.
It costs money for water.
Nope.
It costs money for electricity, insurance, porta potties. You have expenses for gas and insurance for your car.
And trash.
And trash.
Recycling.
Okay, so what's the total?
It comes about $750, $800 a month.
So how do you get that money?
Steering committee.
We
The
do
steering committee.
fundraisers. You guys did your beautiful play.
Yeah, but that was one little shot. What else do you do?
We do those little shots
You're
every.
talking about your fundraising.
Yeah, well, I want to know, community supported shelters, they get money like from our church, that's dedicated to that. Do you have anyone who has dedicated a certain amount monthly to help you out?
No. Nope.
Not this church or any church?
You guys have given us money at this church.
But it's not on a regular,
No, it's
dependable basis. That's my point.
Yeah.
Is it all right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're raising an awareness, and I've been on the steering committee since its inception. We started in response to the assault and shutdown of Whoville. When I got here in 2012, I realized there were a lot of homeless people here, and somehow I wanted to figure out a way to get in the door so that I could be useful as a retired pastor. What I noticed by going to council meetings for the first 6 months and not really saying anything but taking it in is that they were trying to figure out how to appease their constituents without having to spend any money in the process on the subject of or on the reality of homelessness. It turned out that what I saw with Whoville was that it was saving lots and lots of civic money simply by helping people have a place. Even though there was an immediate negative response on the part of civic leaders, it was still saving so much money in court costs, in medical emergency costs. So I've continued to be in deep support and appreciation. I actually adulate these two people for their work over the past 5 years, because it has literally saved us so much money. And they're scrimping. If you're bringing up the possibility of having a kind of governing financial board, it really makes a lot of sense. Because right now we're getting everything for our money and we're not spending it.
A couple points as far as addressing like what can you do, and this also, this kind of sticky spot that we're in of this. Okay, there's needs. Civic funds aren't being spent on it. What can we do? What can make this sustainable? And that's where I think that a lot of these delicate conversations come in with different aspects of the community. And so, personally, a lot of what I'm doing right now through being a student at the university, working downtown, working with Thrive Eugene and some people in the tech community downtown who want to see a difference in different networks, because this is ultimately what we've talked about. How do we get those voices to the table? How do we sit here in this meeting today, learn what we just learned, that their expenses are $800 a month and that the city isn't paying for it? And what I struggle with and what I think is needed is this balance between like a necessary activism, and this is my own struggle and thought process, but this necessary activism of kind of like in your face, like, hey, I'm upset with this and I want change, to who can I speak to about this and how can we come to a consensus? How can we have a conversation about this? And how do you nurture those relationships that foster people wanting to come to the table and wanting to be proactive? So recently I entered the Hopes 22 competition at the University of Oregon to build a resource for the homeless. And what that looked like is I was on a team of 4 master's students of the architecture department, and they came to the table extremely enthusiastic to get involved with this issue, and with all sorts of ideas. Well, let's build a shelter and let's do this, and there's that energy that I've seen in the past few years of people wanting to come to the table, but then it's like, oh, but then what can we do? And then you kind of have to sit at the table and go over, well, this has been tried, and in order to do that, you'd have to go through this process, and this has been on the council for the past 2 years, and that got shut down, but not overwhelming with that, working with and finding out what people are good at and how to raise that up. And then, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Yes Men, but it's basically a group of activists that present an idea to people, whether it's the CEO of a gas company, in a way in which they can digest it in a really pretty package. And personally, I feel like as an activist, hearing something and then wanting to make a difference, it's not jeopardizing myself and my core beliefs, but coming to the table of the people I want to have a conversation with in a manner that they are more likely to hear what I'm saying. Yes. And that's, from my own experience, what I've seen work, and in bridging the conversations of people where they're at, and to get those voices to be heard in the way that will push things to the next level. So what I would advise, or because I didn't know that your expenses were $800 a month, is putting that knowledge in my little pocketbook, and then wherever I go into the community, be it at the university or my bridge group or whatever, having that come up in conversation somehow, and then bringing that up and continuing to bring that up until something manifests from that.
Would you also mention, were you starting a project about showers, portable showers?
Yeah.
Where's that going? Because there are multiple issues that kind of spring out from the basic needs of being in the camp.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example. So the Hopes 22 competition, the Hopes conference was at the university this week. It was a sustainability and design conference. So there were speakers coming in from town, blah, blah, blah. So the team that I was on designed what we hope to now implement, because we found out we won, taking in a retrofitted LTD bus and installing 2 showers on it. I know, I've been wanting to tell you this. Installing 2 showers, one would be ADA accessible and one would be regular size. Inside each of those shower units having a restroom, and then having that, we're working with grad students at MIT that have a filtration system that would use that as gray water into laundry facilities. And then that would be powered by solar panels on top, and also 2 propane tanks. So the design has been created. Now we're just now in the phase of Indiegogo, and the other aspect of that shower bus though was ultimately, when we go back to this goal of bringing people into the conversation, realizing that it's not an us or them issue, it's an all of us issue. We're all humans working in this world together. That the bus will have facts on it around homelessness, and that the volunteers that are working in the bus will be trained in nonviolent communication, empathy. So you'll have one person helping people in and out of the shower facilities, but you'll also have a person outside the bus with a table who will empathetically listen. So if you would like to know more about the issue of homelessness, if you would like someone to talk to, that person would be available to do that. So we're hoping to go forward with that as another means to not only provide basic resources, but to start conversations about this with more people.
Speaking of creating more conversations, who would you say needs to be in that conversation? Or who are the most critical components of that conversation? I'd like to hear from all 3 of you, and then we kind of need to wrap up.
Do you want to?
I just got one thing to add to the last thing. Like Pete asked us what our costs are, and really as leaders of the camp, it's $850, we know that, but we still kind of need to work on the other costs and be able to just present it when people ask. We don't beat ourselves up with guilt, and everything's in divine order, but it's kind of funny. We don't have time to get to the paperwork, so I'm not going to beat myself up about that, but that's what we need to do. Like CSS, they have it more together on that level, and so kind of a goal is to get to that level, but it doesn't always happen, so we'll work on that to just be able to say, here's our budget, that's on us.
So could you move on to that last question? Of who
Yeah, where
needs
did
to
I
be-
write it? Oh, critical.
Who are the critical people that need to be part of this conversation?
Oh, the question's nice. The answer could get me kind of mad because our own county liaison hasn't even ever stepped on the site. Our city manager needs to just come see it. That's where we went, is look how awesome this place is. Please just come see it so you can go, wow, this is really clean and spacious and warm and nice feeling. So the critical people are, with the Meredith Dodd from Seattle conversation, she said one of her regrets is she put all her energy into trying to change the haters.
Yes.
99% of her energy went to trying to sway opinion, and they're really never going to change their opinion deep down in their hearts. So nurture the supporters instead of trying to get more supporters. So we need to bring the supporters to the table. We need to find a way for the homeless people to, not just us, not, to speak for themselves as a group or individually. Politics,
Nurture your
church
supporters.
people,
Business people.
business people. But yeah, like what Emily said, it's like, I just love you so much. You just got the best attitude, the right, correct attitude, It's just, I love how you speak. We need Emily at the table. We need Chris and Pete at the table, and Mary and Judy and Marjorie. Critical people to bring to the table, or to be made aware.
I love that answer. I second that. And in fostering leaders, it's not about leadership, it's about bringing up leaders that may not already.
The community itself, which is almost everybody. But in other towns that I've been in, like Salem I was there for a while because most of my family's around that area. Is churches, and we're in one. But we had 4 squares in Salem and West Salem that helped us out a lot. I mean, they'd come to our camps, they would provide for the newer people, the travelers that came back, after being gone and stuff. The churches really step up in a lot of communities, and I know they do in this community a lot, but it's just, there's more churches out there. Like Dave was saying the other day, there's 200 and some churches or so in this town. And really, if that many churches had just a little percentage in every church to help, it probably wouldn't be such a big problem, And I'm a pretty godly, religious person. I pray probably daily, 10 times some days, so, yeah. Tithe more, let's put it that way. Because I used to tithe hard.
And I think, so part of me, initially, when I hear that question, it's like, well, the people who aren't here, those are the people that need to come to the meeting. We need to bring them in. But I'm also in agreement with, this idea of you can't change people that are staunch in their opinions. But I think that there is this vast middle ground of folks who maybe not be one or the other, but just aren't at the table yet. And in my heart, this isn't really like a bipartisan or divisive issue. That could be for some people, but I think it's something that, is, it's a human issue. And I think it's so interconnected and complex that there are avenues of it that anyone can relate to and anyone is connected to. And so bringing that awareness of the connectivity to people is extremely important, because where you shop at affects, how local jobs are being handled, and how you vote on the prison reform system or on education. Those all in some way are connected to the issue of homelessness. So in that way, people who may not feel a part of this issue yet they just don't know it.
This is certainly not the first time that question has been raised, and I'd like to also throw out maybe a more specific answer to that. To this day, the city still does not have a line item in its budget for homelessness. That's a pretty significant fallout. Emily raised something to me that I think is an interesting perspective, which is architecturally, when you look at a city, its tallest buildings are reflective of society, of its society, which in most cases will find banks being the tallest. So that's kind of an interesting look at where the layout is for your largest and most significant cities. Commerce is sort of your number one thing. It seems that our city still has not gotten there. And while a lot of these sentiments are absolutely true, I think also the convincing of a lot of voices that say one thing for the city to create something like that, and specifically say a budget committee for the city, that could be something huge to incentivize both the community members and the city staff and everyone who is supposed to work for the benefit of the community to work in tandem on all of this. And I just wanted to also contribute that.